Welcome to the CEO Pulse podcast again. So today we have Theresa Sage here with us. She specializes in an area that's not the regular hustle that most entrepreneurs begin with. So yeah, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Awesome. I know that you started in real estate, but you transitioned into a whole other area. Which for what I hear has really changed the way that you approach business on both professional and personal level. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. Yeah, so basically my husband and I have been in real estate for like 16 years together, and we've had a great business. We've had a successful business, even with the ups and the downs. We've always like kind of shifted and provide a lot of value to people, and it's been very profitable and very, great in that regards. But I was finding at a certain point about 4 years ago, I was just kind of going through the motions, right? And I was just like kind of doing that to-do list, and it was getting really kind of monotonous and really boring. Really. Not that, business has a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah, I think the excitement of the challenge, sometimes it can keep you up for a while, but after, it's like anything. When you set up a goal, you reach it, what's after that? It kind of, the motivation dies out, little by little if you let it, right?
Right. And I felt like we were always kind of hitting this plateau in our business. It was kind of like we kept hitting the ceiling, and it was like, what? There's got to be something more. Like really, there's got to be, like I felt like fulfilling myself as a person, and then like my business, I'm like, there's totally got to be something more. And so I was sitting there one day thinking, I'm like, there's just, I know there's something more. You see these people, right? These people who kind of take their lives in business and they go from here and they elevate to here. And they make it kind of look so easy, right?
Right.
And so I've been studying personal development and business and everything forever. I love education. I love going to different things so I can expand and grow. And what happened is my dad called me right around this time, actually, a couple years ago. And he said, hey, I just came from the doctor and I have basically 3 to 6 months to live. Yeah. And so he's like, I have stage 4 lung cancer. And they said I could die in 3 months. And I was like, holy cow, right?
Yeah.
Like, that is crazy. And he didn't say like he was sick, because he lives in Canada, I'm Canadian. And he didn't tell me he was sick, but I was like, holy cow, like kind of like a big slap in the face, right?
Well, it'll rock your world completely.
Completely.
Yeah.
And then you start looking, you kind of pull back and you're like, wait a minute. I don't want to just live my life to just go through the motions, right? I don't want to just be like, you just kind of going, I'm a mom of 2 kids, and I don't want to be just kind of be that robotic mom that's trying to, hey, yay, but really on the inside wasn't feeling very good. And when my dad said I had 3 months to live, I'm like, it really makes you not only your relationships, right, but where you're at in your life. Like what's your life all about, right? Like if you were sitting there and you had 3 months to live, like what impact are you going to leave in this world, right?
Right.
And so, people talk about leaving an impact, but I don't think it really, really sunk in until that moment, right? When he's like, I could be dead in 3 months.
Huge wake-up call, and it's very, very close to it is home, so.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And nobody wants to, people go through stuff, I understand. Nobody wants to lose loved ones. And at the end of the day, what kind of impact do you want to leave for other people? So that happened, and I was a mess. Like, I just like break out in tears. Like I'd be cooking dinner and all of a sudden I'm like crying. And I think it really kind of opened me up, like kind of opened my heart up a lot more than where I was at in my life. And so I feel bad for my husband. My poor husband, I'd be sitting there cooking dinner and all of a sudden I'm like, tears streaming down. He's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, no, I'm okay. And it's just like, I couldn't stop it, And it wasn't that I was sad. I felt like I was going through a transition. that, yeah, I was sad for my father, you know, what he was going through. And I think it was a little bit sad that, you know, I think there was so much more to life, and that not only living up to your own potential, right? And if you're not doing that, what are you teaching your kids, you know? So it was a domino effect from that one, you know, defining moment.
Well, exactly. I mean, it sounds like a catalyst between a, you know, real tough situation and then just a reality check on from within, you know, looking at yourself and where you're standing. I mean, I think it's a really amazing thing that you were able to do there, which is you looking at the situation, you know, what it is, the reality of it, and then taking a step back and being introspective about it, and then, you know, see what is this doing for me, as opposed to just, you know, taking for what the outside situation was.
Right, right. So in that time, I was very blessed because we had a business. I could take the time off. So I went back to Canada and spent a week at a time. I spent a lot of time with him during that time. And I think he needed that too. He was scared. He was unsure. It was a lot of bonding between us, which was beautiful, you know, which is amazing. So during that time, going back and forth, flying and spending time with him, and then trying to figure this all out, I got a call from my cousin, and one of my family members, his son committed suicide at 17. And it was like out of the blue. There was no signs, there was nothing. So back in the closet crying, I was just like, talk about like complete breakdown, right? I was like, my heart was just so hurting because, you know, how could somebody who had so much potential, so much life, just decide that that was not the way to go? Right. And so I'm like, okay, there's got to be more, right? There's got to be more to this life. There's got to be more to like managing your state. There's got to be more to like feeling amazing. There's got to be more to like building and impacting and like changing people's lives in a positive difference, but also like yourself, right? Because you got to be able to, if you can't give unless you're full too, right?
Exactly, yeah.
You know? And so after that, real quick, my dad, actually, luckily, he's alive today. Good. He did a immunizational boosting therapy that was in Canada, and he was a perfect match for the medicine, and it's been a miraculous change.
What a blessing.
Yeah, such a blessing. So grateful, you know, for that relationship to grow and, you know, even deeper. And it was really a neat experience to not a neat experience, but I'm blessed that I got to go through that experience with him. That brought us closer. Even though he had to suffer, it was still a beautiful gift at the end, you know?
Yeah, and in looking at the overall picture, it's amazing. It's really amazing how things happen sometimes, you know, because I've been in the situation where I see I'm dealt a bad card by life, and I'm looking at it, and I'm feeling like this is the worst thing that can happen, and then you see it, you know, 3 months down the road, and you know what, this new person could have not branched out if that hadn't happened.
Right?
Yeah. No, so that shifted your perspective into kind of like a different path, right? Because you had this set way of doing things, and it got monotonous. So what happened after that got you, I guess, more focused? You mentioned that you kept asking yourself, there's got to be more.
Right, yeah.
So what happened after that?
Yeah. So what I figured out, you know, you kind of think about the hustle, right? So I was looking at my life, and I was good at hustle. I could hustle, right? The action. So I think, like, you think of body kind of like a triangle, right? You think of the top one being the body, and your hustle, and you work hard and everything. I could do that. And then you think of like your mind, right? You think of the second part of the triangle as your mind, and you're like, I was going to courses, I knew like real estate inside and out. We've been to every seminar, everything that you could imagine in regards to education, which is very important, right? To know your industry. So I know the mind. But the third component, I think, which I was missing crucially, was I think your soul, right? And I call soul your energy, your emotion. And so that was the third component. And so I'm like, that's it. I'm figuring this out, because if I am not feeling fulfilled, how am I supposed to teach my children to like live that amazing life, to like, you know, be fulfilled. Like, how do I teach them that? And so this energy, I went and found people all over the world I could find to teach me how to manage my energy. How do I figure out intuition? How do I harness that power of energy so that you can not only feel good, but you can also help other people, right? And so along with totally fill your cup. So I went through intuition training. I went through a lot of spiritual training. I went to the extreme from hustle to no hustle. So I would sit in my living room
to levitation,
right? So I would sit in my living room and I would meditate, and I would be meditating. Luckily, I love my husband; he's amazing. So I would be sitting there, right?
Yeah, he's a Yuma boy, just like me.
There you go. Oh, there you go. Awesome. So I would sit there and I would meditate and meditate and meditate and meditate, and it was funny because I kept meditating and I'm like, nothing's happening, right?
Right.
Because as part of the 3 things that are so crucial, you can apply these 3 things. I call this my universal truth, right? This is a universal truth that you can apply, is that if you don't have all 3 of these components, you're kind of missing it, right? So I spent 3 years learning energy, practicing energy, meditating and meditating and meditating, and focusing on how to harness that energy, how to be an intuitive coach, and practice with people all over the world. I was so grateful. It was so exciting, right? And
it's amazing, yeah.
Yeah, it was really fun. And my clients have seen that was the huge improvement in regards to their transformation, right? Like that was kind of the tipping point in their transformation. And I'll give you some real life examples in a second. But what I found is those three components are so crucial to everything: your energy and your emotion, along with your mind, along with the physical aspect of taking action.
Taking action,
right?
The hustle, yeah. So
that's where your hustle comes in, and then the energy comes in. But if you do one, you're so out of balance, right? Mm-hmm. But if you do the other, what I found was you're also out of balance. Exactly, yeah. Exactly. And you think about all the greatest leaders and people in this world, like Tony Robbins, right? Mm-hmm. He's not sitting around doing nothing and meditating. Or even like if you think Jesus, he wasn't sitting around doing nothing, just meditating, you know. Mother Theresa, she was there. She was working, you know, with the helping people, right? And so how do you combine all 3 of these structures so that it amplifies you, right? So you're not hitting that ceiling. So you're not only taking action, but you're using the energy, what I call the energy plane. Mm-hmm. So you access this energy plane, kind of like Einstein, you know, everything's energy. You use this energy plane to amplify your business, amplify your life, but also you use your mental capacity, right? Because you have to know the how-tos, right? And the education of it.
Right. So it's something really, I mean, I completely understand where you're coming from. When I started meditating, and this wasn't too long ago, it was maybe five or 6 years ago, and I started looking into meditation, I also went into it, you know, straight into the deep end. As entrepreneurs, I think we tend to do that quite a bit whenever we find something that we like.
Right. And
so I started meditating a lot, and I wasn't producing much, and that wasn't working out well. So I had to dial it back. But finding that sweet spot and using it as a conscious awareness tool for my performance was a big game changer for me. Yeah. I haven't stopped, since. I'll miss it every now and then here, a day or two or whatnot, but it's something that's been a constant in my life since I started meditating, and really trying to find that the truth actually coming. When I found what my truth was, and I was able to connect with my inner self, and I put everything that was exterior, everything that was a borrowed behavior, something that wasn't really coming from within, and I was able to distinguish between the stuff that I was doing just because it was part of the environment, and the stuff that that I wanted to do, or I was doing because it was part of me, what I really wanted. meaning connected to, to the self. It was a completely different energy that kind of pushed me to do things. So, I mean, you get to the point sometimes that you start talking or start doing something, people don't understand it. They might give you, like, the weird eye sometimes, but it's just part of that. There's the connection that comes from within. It's so strong that it's impossible to say no to it. Is that?
That's beautiful.
Does that sound?
Exactly. That's exactly it. Right. So you're connecting with that energy, right? But now you're maximizing those three things, right? You're taking action, you're using your energy, and you're using your mind to maximize your performance, which is so exciting. And there's nothing you can't do.
This just kind of popped into my head right now, but I've experienced the being in a state of flow intermittently. I mean, I can't say that I was in a state of flow for 6 months and crushed it. No, I've seen it. I've had days where everything just seems to be connected. Everything is flowing both on the outside and on the inside. And I think those days have been where those elements are lined up. My connection with the self, with spirituality, and I don't mean that in a religious type of way. It's just connection, universal connection, and then taking the actions, doing still working in the hustle, but not seeing it, creating from a space of being. I had a really good, and I still have a really good coach, mentor. He's a mental coach. His name is Al Fuentes, and I love that guy, man. This is one of the most amazing people I've ever met. But we've done a lot of work together, and he's the one that introduced me, or he showed me how to build that connection. He empowered me to build that connection with from within, and finding that the state of flow. I don't think it can happen if you can't create from within. If you can't create from a space of being, and for me, staying too much in the hustle, staying too much in the work, it doesn't matter how many projects, how many things you're working on. It doesn't matter how many, ventures you have going on. If you can't come back to that, space of being, and it's going to be really tough or impossible to find that state of flow.
Right.
It's one of those things that I have to remind myself quite often. Chill out, bro. Take a breath. Take a breath. Sit down. If everything's clustered, take a breath. The last thing you need to do is to keep doing it. Right. And step back and take it. Even 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. If whenever I'm cluttered and my mind is going 1,000 miles an hour, if I sit down for 5 minutes and just breathe, usually come out the other end with a lot clearer vision. So.
That's amazing.
Yeah, no, I love it. It really paints a picture when you see it as a triangle. I hadn't thought of it that way, but yeah.
Well, yes. So that's amazing. Now, with people listening, like tangible results, right? You want tangible results. If they can't quite grasp that the theory or the understanding of flow, like you get that feeling of connecting to energy, right? What kind of tangible results can you see? Well, Eric and I, we went through the ups and the downs of real estate, right? And at the time, when we went through a down, we had a house that we had to short sale. And this was back 2000, 10 or whenever the crash was. So we had a house that it was appraised at $2.5 million. And then we had to end up short selling it for $550,000, which was not fun, right?
Yeah.
So we ended up with a judgment of $750,000. Now, this was heavy, right? This is heavy energy, right? This is a kind of thing that weighs on your shoulders.
It's a huge cloud, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, you wake up every day and you're negative $750,000, no fun. But we didn't want to declare bankruptcy because we had made so much money that I didn't want to commit any fraud or bankruptcy fraud. So I said, it's going to work out. We're going to work it out. There's always a way, right? There's always a way. So when I started using this energy work and working, like actually using tools in my business, in things in my life that I wanted to, use not only the energy, but the action and the mindfulness thinking. It was when I did this judgment that was laying over us like 10 years, it was resolved within 3 weeks. Yeah, we resolved it. We had a beautiful settlement on that. It was something that was doable for us. And it was like a whole weight lifted off your shoulder, right? But before, I was doing the mental and the taking action part, but I didn't use the energy part of it. And it was amazing how fast it turned around by using these energy tools, just like in business, right? And that was a concrete example of how these things start to elevate. And I don't know if you've noticed this, when you're in the state of flow, everything seems so easy, right?
Yeah.
And it's almost
crazy.
Like, right? And
it's crazy. Like, wow, did that just happen?
It is.
Did I just have that conversation? Did I just connect with that? Yeah, it's
amazing. It feels amazing, right?
Yeah.
Things start happening. You're like, wow, this is really cool, you know? And like serendipity starts happening. You start running into people that just things start unfolding, and it's like you say, the whole universe is there supporting you and bringing you to a new place. And so it's really exciting to be in that state of flow, to be in that energy where you can maximize not only your business but your personal life as well, right? Because the whole thing is, what's the point of it? Not only just in your business but in your family life,
right?
And to be completely fulfilled in your life. It's so exciting.
Yeah, to be surrounded and be able to carry forward. One thing, I mean, you mentioned earlier the having your cup, a full cup. I think it's a very, very important concept, because you can't give something that you don't have, right? If you want to give somebody $1 but you don't have $1, you can't give that person $1. If you don't have happiness within yourself, if you don't have that, that sense of achievement or being, proud of yourself, you can't convey that. You can't project that. You can't expect somebody to have a conversation with you and walk away with that either. So you have to own it before you can give it away. If you don't have that connection with yourself, you can't convey it. You can't teach somebody. You can't walk somebody through the tools even. If you don't have that that experience from within you, it's not part of you. However, you have that that history where you've lived it. Without understanding, what it was, where you've lived it with, the understanding of what it can do, and it sounds like you have developed the acuity to put it all together. So you mentioned energy tools. There's no way I'm not going to ask about those.
I have a lot of different energy tools that I've learned along the lines.
Can you give us one example or two, because
it's a little bit longer.
Super interesting.
Yeah, it's a little bit longer than 10. I don't think giving it a 5-minute will give it justice, but maybe another time we can go through a whole deal for sure. But part of it is like what Al taught you, right? I started with Al.
Did you really?
Yes, I love Al. Oh my gosh.
That guy.
Yes, that guy. He's amazing.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, he was one of the people that I first experienced this with.
Yeah, if you talk to Al, you're not gonna walk away the same person.
Right. And that's been it's been a beautiful journey with so many people. There's so many talented people out there. It's pretty amazing. So these energy tools can help you in regards to different aspects of your life. And so depending on, it's so funny because like you said, when you're trying to identify that flow, that sense of flow, right? And I'm sure when you first worked with Al to later, it was such a huge transition, but it was so little along the ways. It kept growing and growing and growing, and that's what the energy work is all about, right? It's an evolution of your soul. It's an evolution of your life, right? It's an evolution of your energy. And so if I were to demonstrate a tool right now, I don't think it would be as effective because you kind of have to go through the process, but we can definitely.
Gotcha.
We can work on that.
Yeah, when I started doing the growth work, I mean, I was having battles with, things that I didn't even consider issues.
Right.
And then it started hitting me like, oh my God, this is why this is happening. This is why I'm understanding, things this way. This is why I get, emotional or clouded by, this type of stuff. Yeah. And just going back and having those deep conversations, and it really is a process of self-discovery.
Right.
And then when you can sit down and reflect on it and meditate and take an intrinsic look at the whole thing, that's when the real magic happens. And from that point forward, it's up to you whether you choose to take it or not, right?
Right.
And but I think somebody who's on that point of the triangle on the mindset and the growth stage is always going to adopt it. And that makes perfect sense to me, having the action, the hustle at the top, having the mindset and the growth here, and then the spirituality. I'm looking at the thing in my brain, it just makes perfect sense. You can't see opportunities if you haven't grown to the point where you can recognize them. Right? You can't connect it with just the overall energy or different people or manifest it if you don't have that connection to your spirit and to your energy.
Right.
And nothing's going to happen if you don't take action.
But here's the thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you flip it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like a superhero.
My favorite, Iron Man.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? So you flip it. So you have your soul work, your mindfulness, and then you take your action. So then that's where your superhero powers come in. So that's one of my energy tools.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's huge right there. Gold,
You switch the paradigm because people think you're like, when people are listening and they're like, oh, meditate, that's not for me.
There's a lot of
right?
skepticism around it,
Right?
A lot.
But what you're really doing, which is so beautiful, and I'm so glad that you figured it out, was that you are working. You are actually taking action just on an energetic level, which will give you 10 times the results than actually taking the physical action. So when you flip that over, and you take that time to do your soul work, your energy work, to think about things in regards to planning your day or taking, making your checklist or whatever it is that works for you, and then you take your action. That's when you amplify your results 10x, right? And your high performance starts kicking in.
Oh my God, I love it. I love it, yeah.
So then you have your superhero suit on.
Yeah, you totally threw a curve on me. Yeah, I love it. Perfect sense. So how has understanding, going through that internal work, and I call it work, it's the same thing as a regular workout, right? You have different types of, you can lift weights, or you can do cardio, there's different types of working out and becoming better. I think in the sense of the personal development, it's going to be, you can do, you can read, you can write, you can do mindset work. It's all part of the same type of evolution that we have as humans. But how has that changed your business, having that connection to your inner self? How has that changed the way that you, your professional side?
Well, for instance, in real estate, whenever I'm doing deals with people, negotiating deals, I'm always looking for the win-win, right? So I think about it on an energetic standpoint. You think about it like all the things you have to do mentally, and then you have to take action, right? So I'm always using my energy tools to actually work the deal before I'm talking to somebody, before the deal goes together, and I'm always looking for that win-win, right? You're standing in your authenticity and that connection. And so you feel, I think this is so important, especially when you start, because once you learn and you start expanding, and I love the fact that you're like, I connect with my authentic self, right? And then when you start doing that, but you start doing that in business, right? And I know you know this, but you start doing this in deals. Like this morning, it's so fun. I'm telling you, this stuff is so fun. It's like serendipity happens, and then you start thinking about things and things just start happening, right? This morning I was working on a deal, and we have a contract came in, and we're kind of working on a number back and forth. And I said, was talking to the agent yesterday, hey, let's create this win-win. He said, I'll go back to my guys. And last night he left it, he's like, they said they don't want to do that. Well, you do your work, you do your energy, and you do your energy tools. And then this morning I get a text first thing, yeah, they went ahead and they agreed upon it. And it's like, these things happen and they're unexplainable, and they just, it's almost like an easy time warp, right? Like, you get your list of things done in half the time, and you run into people that are just out of the blue, right?
Perfect timing kind of stuff.
Perfect timing,
Absolutely.
yeah. And I know this happens to you all the time. And so my husband, Eric, he's more on the sales side in regards to talking to people with our business. And, you know, he'll just run into people. And he just, you know, oh my gosh, he gets so excited. It's so much fun.
that, and then he can strike up a conversation just like that.
Oh, yeah.
The guy's so easy flowing.
Right, totally. But he's always using the energy to like bring in opportunities. He's asking for opportunities. He's asking for good things to happen. He's asking for good things to happen to other people, you know. And so it's a cycle. And every day he's all, oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe what happened. I'm like, oh, what? You know? So it's so much fun because every day is like a new adventure, right? Which goes back to the fulfillment. It goes back to the fulfillment because it is fun. It starts becoming fun and exciting. And real estate doesn't have to be, or whatever, I don't know, like whatever your business doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be a struggle, right? It can be fun. It can be win-win. You can create this energy of profitability and excitement and impact for other people, not only for your clients, but like for yourself and your team, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of different ways to play in the industries that, you know, can be the most competitive, yet make them enjoyable and not necessarily cutthroat. For example, real estate. Real estate it's one of those industries where it has this stigma about, you know, it's kind of like, you know, the stock market in terms of the, you know, the friendliness of it. So it's not, but at least in the space that I'm playing, I don't see the slightest glimpse of, you know, of that. And on the contrary, I see a lot of collaboration. I see a lot of, you know, connection, people just helping out. I mean, left and right. And I think it's because of the space that I was able to start playing in, that I got to meet the people that, you know, I've gotten to meet so far, and then that space just grows. What are your intentions going forward?
Sure. So I'm working multiple businesses. I work with my husband on real estate business. I also sell the homes. And then we're looking into notes, which is really fun for us. It's a whole new avenue. I don't know if Eric told you, but we're looking into notes and working that out. So that's super fun. We have a lot of notes, so that's cool. And then for myself, I think this transition to a soulful business is really where my heart's at in regards to my own business. And so helping entrepreneurs find that flow, find that, you know, how to use these energy tools in their business and their personal lives so they can impact more people, right? Because I envision myself, I always like, you know, what am I here for? How can I help? You know, and I just envision lighting people up all over the world, right? And how do I do that?
Yeah, well, you never know what the ripple effect is going to do.
Right.
You know, you have a conversation with that person, and then that person is going to take it somewhere else, and somewhere else, and somewhere else, and somewhere else, and then next thing you know, you built a castle.
Right.
From that one point, yeah.
Exactly. So if you help one entrepreneur, think about like they're helping people, you know, not only their own family, but they're impacting their clients, and it just escalates. Right. But I love the fact that you're like, you know, you found kind of your vibrational match in the real estate, and that's what happens, right?
I think we all, at least, you know, in this circle, we all play in that space. The energy that's been put out, the genuineness of it, and the, you know, the caring and the connection and the love, it's still coming from the same space.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. I love that, which is amazing, right?
Yeah, it's incredible to see. So awesome. So when you jumped into I'm gonna backtrack a little bit in history. How did you jump into entrepreneurship?
I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. Like when I was in high school, I always loved personal development, and I always read business books. So my girlfriends would be reading like Vogue and whatever, and I'd be sitting there with the business book, right? Or like
business
some sort of
review.
Yeah, or how to make my life better. And so I always wanted to do that. And so when I met Eric, he was so entrepreneurial. And he was so amazing that I'm like, he started doing real estate, and I was a financial advisor at the time. And so I started learning about self-directed IRAs and private money. And so at the time, I'm like, you know, we can really make an amazing business together.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah, right? In all aspects. And so he's like, yeah, let's do it. And so we just kind of went for it, and it's been awesome. He's so positive. He's such a great, amazing person. So it's been awesome.
Yeah, every time he's in the room, I mean, it just conveys the guy he starts talking, and then just people listen.
Yeah.
And it's because of the energy, and it's also because of what, the experience that he has, the experience that he knows, and he's a good kind at heart.
And he's fun.
Yeah,
He's funny.
Super fun. We were having a blast the other day. We were having a conversation here, and that's when we found out we were both from Yuma, and started connecting. And he went to my same high school, so yeah, all kinds of stuff. And then we just started comparing, stories, and it was a fun time. But I mean, I love it. It's amazing what really just having that degree of connection can do. And I don't think it. I don't think it has to be something that goes incredibly deep to make a change. You don't have to become a monk to really just have that connection, with yourself, and have that space of or that shift, within yourself. What would you recommend as far as people who are getting started in personal growth and looking? And I'm not talking on the intellect side. I'm talking on the personal and spiritual connection with the self. What would you recommend to somebody like that in terms of, for example, meditation or simple exercises that somebody can take and do on a daily basis?
Well, first off, do it. Right? Like that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Like even though you think you're like, oh, I don't have time for that.
Part of the triangle.
Part of the triangle. It's going to give you 10 times the results for sure. And I think it's all about, like you said, finding your truth, right? Like what resonates with you. Like, if sitting there for 20 minutes, at least do 20 minutes of meditation. If sitting there in quiet meditation resonates with you, then do that. But if that's uncomfortable for you and that just doesn't work for you, then there's tons of meditations online where you can just listen and you find who resonates with you, right? So maybe it's a female voice, or maybe it's just music, or maybe it's sitting outside in nature. But you really want to find what your connection source is. Maybe you're sitting outside hugging a tree for 20 minutes, and that's okay, as long as you start just really taking in the time and just kind of being, right? Like Al always talks about just being, and just like, for me, I'm at the point in my life where I can feel the energy. Like if I stop to meditate, I start getting tingles, and when I'm with you, I can just like feel the energy, like so it's super fun. But I think people need to start where they're at, and finding what resonates with them and what works for them. What works for them. And the other thing is, you evolve, right? So what may work for you right now, you'll change.
It's going to be completely different in 6 months, 3 months. It depends on how fast you're growing and how fast you're connecting. What it comes to show is that there's different ways to get to that same, point. So meditation, for example, somebody who does it for 2 hours may work perfectly for them, but somebody else may not need more than 20 minutes to really connect and have that effect. The point is to do it. I have a very, very busy mind, so when I sit down, it's kind of hard for me to stay still and not think about stuff. How do you deal with that?
Well, and that's why I said, like, sometimes it's better to listen to somebody's meditation. Guided. Or then just sit there fighting with yourself the whole time, right?
Yeah, right.
Because, and that's the other thing is people are like, oh, it should
thinking
work.
about the prospecting calls you're going to make.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And I would never, that's okay. That's just, part of the whole process. And then some days you're going to feel more connected than other days. And that's totally perfectly fine too, But it's just finding what works for you. Because if you're sitting there and being in silence doesn't work, then maybe that's not the right connection for you at the time.
Pivot and do something else.
Yeah, totally.
I have a couple of different ways of that I come about it, because I do plateau. So I'll do something for a while and then it just becomes monotonous. And I'll have to kind of mix it up a little bit. For example, one thing that I learned to do was just to bucket my or time blocks in the morning, right? So I have from 5 to 6, it's just spiritual work, it's mental work, it's me sitting down, either quiet or doing something. And I won't take the whole hour because I can't stand still for that long.
Yeah.
But I within that time, that's when it's my time to connect with me, right? And then I'll jump into a creativity. Between 6 and 8, I'll start creating, and there's stuff that I want to develop. So what it does for me, I'm able to just put placeholders on. All right now I want to get busy with this, but I'm not going to start thinking about that until 6. Then I can go on it, and that works for me because it kind of clears my mind out a little bit for that space and time.
Love it. Because
I have the awareness that I'm gonna get to it, but it's gonna be coming in at 8
right.
or at 10.
Right.
So yeah, just having that big window of space, not necessarily taking the whole thing, because I'll prep coffee, I'll do other stuff in that time, but I know I sit down and that's my time to do it.
Right. I love it.
So awesome. If you were walking down the street, and I love asking this question, if you were walking down the street and you were 17 years old and you ran into yourself, what would you tell that girl?
Oh my gosh, that's such a great question. I love it. Oh my, have more fun.
Yeah?
Holy cow, yeah, just relax and have more fun. Now, chill out. Well, and I think the one thing is once you learn this, you get a sense of peacefulness, a sense of security that it's all going to work out. Everything's going to work out. That you don't have to worry about it anymore, right?
Yeah.
You have the tools.
Don't know how.
You don't know how, but it's okay.
Don't really want to figure it out exactly. I just know it's going to pan out somehow, some way.
Some way. And so like now that you're taken care of by the universe, right? Now that you're taken care of, you know how to take care of yourself and you're taken care of, everything's going to work out for you. Oh my gosh, just have fun, like enjoy life, right? And I think you do a great job at this because you, like I feel like, you enjoy life too.
Find the moments. Right? Yeah, it's, I love having projects. I like, I love doing different things and just being curious about life.
Yeah.
I was really afraid when I would venture into something and then things didn't start, panning out right. But I think that came with my degree of need for wanting to control everything. And stepping back from that, to a point and releasing some of that was a big game changer for me. And the way it came in words was, don't worry about it. You're gonna figure it out. You've always figured it out.
Yeah.
You're alive right now.
Yeah.
So it means that the past 36 years, you've figured those out. Somehow, some way. You're here.
You're here.
You're talking to me. And this was a conversation with Al, actually.
Yeah.
And you're always gonna figure it out. That's your thing. You figure stuff out. And once that's sunk in, it can be a really, really dark time, and then that'll just pop into the back of my head. I'm gonna figure it out, release, and then connect and create, from a space of being.
Yeah.
And that's without question one of the hardest battles that I've taken, internally.
Yeah.
I still get gappy on it sometimes, but I can always go back to it and then recollect from that space. Which to me, it's a beautiful thing. So have more fun, huh?
Have more fun, yeah, because think about it. So a huge challenge comes in your life, right? Realistically, if you use your superpowers,
superpower triangle,
right? On
which,
whatever
by the way,
challenge.
He's my favorite superhero, the Iron Man.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Anybody who knows me knows.
Oh, seriously, I love Marvels. That's just like, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's my favorite thing, but one of my favorite things, along with my kids and my husband. But right, that superpower, right? So you have like this now that you have these tools in your toolbox, any obstacle that comes in or challenge, right? You're good because you know to handle it energetically. You have energetic tools. You have the mental tools. You think about it in a positive way, and you do the action items to resolve it, and then you take the action, right? So you have your I don't know, your superhero power is to like deal with any challenge.
Yeah, well, it's a structure. It's a way. I mean, a lot of people, we need structure to thrive. Because for the most part, every entrepreneur is a mess.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're all a mess. It's for the most part. I'll go as far as say 95%, because whatever we learn as far as organization or I mean, we're good at implementing, figuring stuff out, and then throwing spaghetti in the wall. I don't think that's a problem with anybody that I've met. that's an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But having a sense of comfort with things, I think, comes from understanding. And what you're doing is helping people understand how to connect with something that's not mainstream.
Right.
That's something that it's not a common thing. It's not even a common thing to talk about it. When you talk about energy, when you talk about connecting, to the self, when you talk about your truth and who you are from within, people do this.
Right.
And then they start stepping back, for the most part. But it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful part of life that, in my opinion, needs to be highlighted. So I thank you for the work that you're doing, and the ripple effects of that. I mean, it's unreal. Who knows where they can get to? So before we head out, where can we find you? So if somebody wanted to find out more about you, or more about your trainings, your coaching, where could they find you?
TheresaSage.com.
Theresa Sage.
Yeah, with an H. So
TH.
Yeah, THERESA. Sage.com.
So there you guys have it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. I was so looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Because I feel weird every time I talk about meditation, and I mean, and you can see it on, pendulum work, and it's just a different world.
Yeah.
And it's not something that's commonly talked about. So I really enjoyed it. I thank you for the golden nuggets. And I mean, huge lesson with the triangle. What do you call? Do you have a name for it? What do you call it? Just a triangle, superhero triangle.
That's my.
That's what I'm gonna call it.
Yeah,
that's what I'm gonna call it. But
well, you're really flipping the paradigm
Yeah.
of kind of the hustle upside down, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is.
I mean, it makes sense in all aspects. So.
But but in regards, real quick, before we wrap up, if it's all quantum physics. It's all, Einstein talked about it.
Everything's energy.
Yeah.
Everything's
energy. So if you think about it from a physics point, it is what it is, And so it's just so if you're like, I do a lot of quantum physics in my business.
Absolutely. So, what are you, CPA? No, I want to share a story.
Yeah.
So I was having this conversation about quantum physics with my kid. He was 11 years old at the time, right? And I like to throw out like deep conversations along with football conversations and kid conversations, and every now and then I'll throw something that's just kind of to see where he's at. And I mean, I sort of got the coolest things come out of that, those conversations all the time. So I was talking to him and I told him, hey papi, you know that everything is energy, right? And we were sitting on the counter, at the kitchen counter. There was an apple right there. And well, think about it. Like, look at that light bulb. You see the light? Yeah. What is a light? It's electricity. All right, cool. Now, you see that apple? Yeah. So what's inside the apple? And he goes, the white stuff? Okay. What's inside the white stuff? And he goes, like tiny cells? What's inside the cells? And then, it's, protons, and then what's in neutrons and electrons, and so I broke it down as much as I could, right? And I did the same thing with the plate. So what's that? It's a plate. What's inside of that? Well, glass. What's inside the glass? Cells, and what's inside those cells? Protons and electrons. So I kept going that, to the same spot. And then I pointed out to electricity, and he started, I just saw it when he clicked in his eyes, and he just opened wide. And I told him, you see how everything is made out of the same thing? At the end of it, when you break everything down, at the very bottom of it, it's energy.
Yeah.
It's energy.
It's energy.
So what's inside your hand? He goes bones, blood, and then what's inside of that? Cells, protons, and electrons. At the end of it, energy. So I would end up, every single thing would end up, in terms of energy. and we leveled it out, and it was pretty cool to see how he caught it, and ever since then, I'll ask him, "What's that made of?" Energy. And it's just like a super cool conversation to have with an 11-year-old kid. So
well, there you go.
Yeah, exactly. Everything is energy.
Yeah.
So once again, thank you so much for being on the show. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I really, really appreciate your time and you making the trip over here. So
yeah,
thank you so much.
Thank you.
There you guys have it. Theresa Sage, theresasage.com. Stay tuned, stay focused. You got it.